entitled Asia for Global, and it's one of the most enduring narratives out there has been the rise of Asia and its growing economies. But of course, what does that growth mean for the rest of the world? As it stands now, Asia stands at a critical juncture in that growth path, and of course those advancements coming through to converge and start a new chapter. So on that very topic, to discuss this, Asia for Global, we have some very renowned speakers to take us through the current landscape. So I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Karim Al-Wadi, the co-founder of Beltway Group, to join me up here on the stage. Dr. Al-Wadi is an entrepreneur based in Beijing and a founder of the China phobia theory. So let me see, where are you? Over there. Get you in your seat. And Dr. Meena Chatterjee, the CEO of Sustain Labs from Paris in India, extensive experience in finance and policy, and multiple accolades for contributions to sustainability and, of course, social equity as well. Timothy Chen, the co-founder and managing partner of ACHI Capital in the US. Come and join us on the stage. And Dr. Karim El-Sol, co-founder and chief executive officer of Gulf Capital, one of the largest private equity firms in the Gulf region, managing over $2.4 billion in assets. They are going to be moderated today. We know her well. She's coming back to the stage. Vanessa Xu, the executive chairperson and CIO of VS Partners. Vanessa, over to you. Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone. This is one of the highlight sessions of this year's SuperBridge Summit, not because I'm moderating, but because of the speakers and the content that we're going to bring out from this session. First of all, I'm going to ask each of our speakers to go from team and all the way to the end to introduce to the audiences what you do.
My name is Timothy Chen. I realize I'm the only non-doctor here in the panel, so I feel like I'm a compromise to the session. But to talk a little bit about myself and what the firm does, I run a private equity firm in semiconductors, mostly focused on bridging. So whether it's from Taiwan to China, Taiwan to the US, to Malaysia, and hopefully in the UAE. But before I say a little bit about myself, I want to say something about Asia for Global. So when I saw Vanessa and saw the title Asia for Global, I thought she was the physical embodiment of that, building SuperBridge. Would you all agree? So when we talk about building bridges and SuperBridge, sorry for the plug-in, Vanessa embodies that. When Jane was talking about female empowerment, and then SuperBridge, and then Asia for Global, you tie in all those things together as a bridge. So thank you, Vanessa, for inviting me.
You're very kind. Karim.
My name is Karim Salah. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Gulf Capital. We're one of the largest and oldest private equity firms in the Gulf. But what's different about us is from inception 18 years ago, we've been looking towards Asia for expansion. We have offices in Singapore. We're looking at expanding into Hong Kong and beyond. We've done 15 acquisitions across Asia. Every time we buy a company in the Gulf, we take it to Asia and hopefully want to bring companies from Asia to the Gulf. We like this east-west corridor connecting the two regions together.
Minia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Minia. I'm the CEO of Sustain Labs Paris. We're a venture-building company which focuses on sustainability and climate-focused ventures. And it's a great topic, Asia for Global, I agree. And the reason I think I'm here is because, interestingly, we work across Europe, North Africa, Asia Pacific, as far as Fiji and New Zealand. But we have a substantial number of team members who actually live in Dubai and in India. So we are actually serving global from Asia.
Yes.
Hi, Karim Al-Wadi, entrepreneur based in China and Beijing since year 2001. Politics is my hobby. Doing business is what put food on the table. And my main business now is connecting China to the Middle East and vice versa. So we co-invest with the Chinese companies coming here, and we are working with the sovereign funds of the Gulf, navigating their investment back to China.
Well, let me add a little bit more about the background of Tim. He is a industrialist turned into a private equity investor, but more of an industrialist as I see. He used to be CEO of ViaTech China, which is one of the earliest semiconductor companies that brought the chip technologies to China almost, 30 years ago. And Karim on the far end also involved in some very large infrastructure projects across the region and bridging Asia as well. So to begin, this panel actually assembles a very, very important elements of or factors to drive productivity: K, capital, and human equities that the Sustain Lab Paris work a lot on, and industrial companies that are actually creating productivities. So I want to end from the very foundational level. We live in a world with a narrative of deglobalization, supply chain is broken, regions are localized, they are disconnected from each other. But actually from all your work, I see connectivities has been never stronger and growing and deeper. So, Tim, your portfolio companies and your work with your operating businesses actually supply the most vital component, semiconductor, through different technology branches to other industries that can be built on top of it. Or there's nothing that can be built today without the semiconductor. So from your business, what you see about Asia for global, how the Asia semiconductor entire value chain from the upstream resources all the way to the downstream applications that are actually enabling global industrialization?
So Vanessa, thanks. That's a very long question. So let me start saying this. Semiconductors right now in this period of time, there's, as everyone knows, a US-China bifurcation. But I need to make a political statement here. I'm Taiwanese, but I'm also Chinese. And so when people talk about Taiwan, China, they always ask me, Tim, how do you see it? And I tell people this, it's an inseparable separation. It's inseparable. And that's the way I see semiconductors. It's a global phenomenon. Semiconductors, you may try to bifurcate it. You may say you want to locate in the US, bring manufacturing in the US. That's possible. But to break that bridge, the global ecosystem, I think is almost impossible to do. So what I'm doing right now in this world of bifurcation, in this world of tension, is bridging that divide. That's what I mainly do. And so I want to take a little back history and talk about what I call geo-semiconductor realignment and give a little bit of a history behind that. So when people look at Silicon Valley, let's take a look back. 1950s, 1960s, there was the Intel and Fairchilds of the world. In the 1970s, that moved to Europe, realignment. And so you saw companies like now, ASML, but started with Philips, And then in the 1980s, you saw the emergence of Japan. And the driver of that was a company called Sony. People may forget, but the GSA, the Global Sector Association, wanted to stop Sony and their growth in semiconductors in 1980. They started things such as no photolithography, but they went forward, Sony, in pushing a company called Nikon and Canon. And that spurred a way for Japanese semiconductor industry. Then in 1983, Samsung came to the forefront, and they moved from a cable to start doing something as small as microwaves. But that took the rise of the semiconductor industry in Korea to a certain level. And benefactors such as myself from Taiwan was beneficiaries of US PC offshoring. That moved to Taiwan. And then you see China. If you look at China today, ecosystems around semiconductors always focus around devices or system drivers. When you have Huawei, Xiaomi, Transsion, Oppo, Vivo occupying over 50% of the world's phones and smartphones, how can the Chinese semiconductor ecosystem not persist and grow? But now there's another shift happening, not only in Southeast Asia, but here in UAE. And I see this happening. When a couple years came here ago, I wasn't sure. But I see not only the vision, but the leadership at Dubai and the UAE and what they're doing. From Mubadala, which was in Global Foundries such a big, bold move, into what I'm seeing right now in data centers. With these drivers, how does that semiconductor realignment not happen here? So we're talking about, when Dr. Abdullah was talking about building tomorrow for today, I'm seeing that right now. And people like me in the semiconductor industry, it is our obligation to build that bridge, like what Vanessa's doing in this community, from China to the Middle East. That's my goal. Thank you.
Thanks. So that naturally lead me to Karim on a closer end. Your business is investing both ways between Asia and the Gulf. So what are you buying, investing, and in between these two regions, and why?
Thank you. We are focused on 5 sectors. We are big investors in tech, fintech, healthcare and health tech, business services, consumer, and sustainability. Within sustainability, we look at water, the environment, food security, energy transition, and renewables. Now, all of these sectors are growing very fast in our region, essentially. And we are looking for companies across the sectors and across the geographies. They may start here, we take them to Asia, or they may start in Asia and we bring them here, essentially. The two regions are connecting, and we are looking to import a lot of technology from China and Asia to this part of the world. And we're also exporting some of our expertise from here to China. For example, we bought 60% of one of the oldest water treatment, sewage treatment, and water desalination business in the Gulf. We took it to India, Indonesia, then we bought the leader in China. We became #1 in Asia, with China being our biggest market. That's an example of a company started here, expanded very successfully to China and Asia.
We'll go back to some of your comments in a little bit across industries of how the Asia indigenous innovations that are able to replicate and amplify throughout other regions to enable their development. This is a very big underlying trend we see. So I'll jump to Karim on your infrastructure work across the region. You are involved in some very foundational and big projects. Also, these projects need a lot of industrial capabilities and product and ecosystem suppliers to be able to build. So what do you see in your work of how Asia capabilities are enabling this region?
Well, I mean, maybe it is for the first time, or it's a unique time where the two parts of Asia becoming each other biggest trade partners. And now this is reflecting in more and more business people from the both sides are rediscovering each other. Rediscovering because the Silk Road, all of these relations, all of that, and there, I would say, in the last 30 years, 40 years, there was a lack of interest in working with each other on both sides of Asia. Now this is changing because geopolitical, because of economical, all of this part. Now the East Asia, basically Japan, Korea, now China, and India coming here, I would say they have a lot of valuable know-how for this part of the world. A, culturally are similar. B, the political system are also kind of similar. You have a very strong governments, and for an entrepreneur, you need to kind of survive under a centralized, strong government. This kind of know-how and how to flourish under this kind of circumstances. This kind of know-how is valuable in here. Now, in terms where I live in Beijing, and that's what I kind of understand a little bit more. Now, China has a set of know-how that can help in this region in a relatively acceptable price. Let's say in Saudi, big ambitions. We are helping NEOM in doing their procurement in China. Yes, the projects are big, but also the funds are limited. Now, it's for a decision maker, he needs to kind of balance what we can do with the limited amount of funds as well in the right timing. So, ability to deliver, the focus on economy, pure focus on economy. People also from the, let's say, from China and Japan, they don't talk about politics, generally speaking. It's focused on the business. And to be honest, the region, I think, has sent a very clear message that they are not interested to join the big boys' games. Basically, we like the American burger, we enjoy the Chinese noodles, but I think our hummus and tabbouleh and falafel this is what we love. So this is basically how we are trying to put it in, for the big boys, and I hope that they will respect that.
And Minia, you run a venture building company. So on top of all these industries, these gentlemen are building, and what other ventures you see proliferated from these works between Asia and Europe, and what are particularly in terms of human capital that you have a great focus on that contribute to this connectivity?
Thank you, Vanessa. I think I'll start by saying that historically, there's been great migrations from Asia to Europe, to the US, and also down south to Australia and New Zealand. But I think what, from my vantage point, from the field of sustainability and climate, and like Karim, he invests in that space as well, I'm seeing the growth of intellectual capital now moving. And I'll tell you why, because this region, Asia, they have seen soaring temperatures for years. Water has been a scarce resource for the longest time. So there's actually a lot of innovation that has been happening in this region, in the Middle East, in the UAE, in India, in China, for countering some of the changing climates that the rest of the world is seeing now. So the initial part of, let's say like two decades ago, Asia was picking up solutions from what was working in France, in Netherlands. And I kind of work in Europe as well as in Asia, so I see that. But in the last few years, there are bespoke solutions. There's a lot of innovation that's happening here. So that's one big, trend that I see. Secondly, like I said, my own company, Sustain Labs, we have talent. We have a team which is based in India, which is based in the UAE, skilled engineers. I have some of them over here with me in the team as well. And we are working with Europe, we're working with across the world. So these are, beyond IT and beyond manufacturing. And these are thought leadership and climate and sustainability focused solutions, which I think that we are seeing that this part of the world is providing for the rest of the world. Even the UAE, AI, startup innovation is immense over here.
I wanted to go back to building on Minia's comments to Karim's story of you bought a Chinese water treatment technology company, brought it to Southeast Asia, and then made it become one of the largest in Asia. That's a very typical story of what Minia just described. But what are the specific know-hows, competencies, characters, capabilities, attributes that you're looking for acquiring these technology-backed Asia companies and to put them global?
I think, when I started my career, we were looking west for technology. But today, we're investing in fintech and AI and health tech. We're looking more to the east for those kind of technologies. So, for example, we bought 51% of a company called Jidya here, which is the largest merchant acquiring payment company in the Gulf. And we are continuously looking to Asia for the latest fintech and payment expertise. And we have distributed 1 million payment POS machines to enable payments, all manufactured in China. We work on the design, but we used to bring the machines in the US first. We realized the technology in China is more advanced, and we're getting it at a lower price. So we get fantastic value sourcing that technology from China, distributing it across the Gulf.
So going back to Karim, you mentioned high quality, affordable technology competencies. Both Karim mentioned that as well. So can you give some more stories as to, from your real life, what does Asia innovation, manufacturing ecosystem, talent pool, all these factors together offer that attributes that you bring to this region and beyond? And give some examples of that.
I mean, in the solar part, I would say, as an example, you know, because of China has invested for the last 20, 30 years almost. So the cost went almost 92%, right? Now, if in regions, if you see today, let's say in Syria, North Syria, south of Syria, where like not government control areas, they have enough sufficient electricity. Why? Because each of them, they put their own solar. While Damascus is sitting on a 1-2 hour space, basically electricity. In Saudi today, I would say the newest entry of Kita, which is Meituan, the biggest delivery company in the world. They are bringing, they deliver every day 60 million deliveries, right? Vis-a-vis Talabat, Jahiz. And I think the region will see for the first time on like a real-time live show on what the online giants of China can do in 1, 2, 3 months. They are already driving the price down by 20%, and they just started by 1 month or more. Of course, the preparation been there for the last 2 years. Now, for them to decide to have, so they tried with Hong Kong, just a small trial, but their global expansion, they decided to be in this region. This is telling a very big story on if you were sitting somewhere in China, where you will go with your first step in globalization. US is becoming difficult. Europe more and more difficult for them. So therefore, I think, and I see, and we are working on different projects that we put the region here as a first hub. Actually, Emirates now represent 40%, almost 40% of the Chinese entrepreneurs. They want to go out. Usually, this is where their first step to be. The relations between, let's say, China and the Arab world has exceeded $400 billion of trade.
Yes.
Right? It is the biggest growing trade relations between them. If you see the sovereign funds now investing in China exceeded more or less around $45 billion in the last few years. So it's almost maybe the only or one of the very few sources that still invested direct investment in China. And China today is, generally speaking, is a good deal on the investment part. So there is a lot of rediscovering. There has been friendship being built, but I think what is lacking is understanding each other and getting to understand how business is done between both parties. A lot of Chinese entrepreneurs or Asian entrepreneurs, East Asian entrepreneurs, as well Western entrepreneurs, they don't know each other well yet. And that's
They didn't come to Superbridge, so they should.
Exactly.
Then they will know each other well.
That's why what you are doing is very important.
Yeah, we have a few minutes left, and I want to channel to Tim, because the semiconductor is a very focal point globally in the recent years, and I think the news headlines very often focus on potential conflicts or the sensitive technologies. I want to ask you 2 questions. Number one, this region has a ambition of AI leadership, and what does that mean for semiconductor industry, either challenges or opportunities? And number 2, please tell the audiences, other than the 3 nanometers, other than the sensitive technologies, which is only a very small part of the entire semiconductor industry, how the other secular growth in the non-sensitive industrial consumers space that actually present very large opportunities that the headlines forget to talk about, and maybe overly guided the focus to conflict rather than opportunities.
Thank you, Vanessa. So let me answer your second question first. And I think you're asking about chip wars and people talking about the tension between US, China, all these conflicts, right? And everyone wants to talk about advanced technology, whether it's 2 nanometer, 3 nanometer, about advances in photolithography. But let's take a look at my phone. If you look at this phone, how many devices here are advanced node? Is 3 nanometer or 5 nanometer? Zero. Absolutely zero. So what is there to worry about for 2% or 1% of the market? Right, that's one. But I'll take a step back and talk about some of the news around China and semiconductors. Due to these tensions, in China, you're seeing not only the rise of China, but you're seeing the rise of China's semiconductor ecosystem from scientists and industrialists. I saw a number of people here last night. I saw them the rise. And so what I always tell people is 200-300 years ago, European civilization and Chinese civilization was similar, and there was a divergence. Now that convergence is happening, the rise of China has happened. China is only standing in its rightful place in society. And I look toward the Middle East, and I see the rise of the Middle East in this region. And that convergence will also happen, not only on a macro stage, but on a semiconductor stage. The Chinese, Asians, we will come here. We will bring our best practices, we will bring our domain expertise, and we'll work hand in hand as internets and semiconductors to build that. That's what I truly believe.
To build on that, semiconductor industries are coming here, and this is a region with a constrained or specific natural endowment. And to build a semiconductor has a very long value chain. So what needs to happen if, say, there are to be a semiconductor ecosystem or relevancy here? What needs to happen?
Okay, before I answer that question, let me take a step back. I was reading yesterday about the history of Dubai. 100 years ago, it was a fishing village. 40 years ago, it was a pro trading hub. Then gold, then oil. Now look at this. Then look forward in digital Dubai. So the thing is, when Dr. Abdullah was talking about confidence, first you have to have the confidence to believe that UAE has the vision. And they've proven themselves in the last 30 years. That's one. Second is, let's be practical. What do we need? Talent. And so last night when I was walking around, I was asking different waiters, service staff, where are they from? One said Tajikistan, one said Afghanistan, one said China, one said Malaysia, one the Philippines. The talent pool can be built here because it has also been proven. Third step, bring companies here. And I'm already seeing this, not only in the financial world, but all my Chinese friends in the last year have made stops here. Then the fourth thing is, how do we incentivize them? And I believe the government here is smart enough, intelligent enough to bring that catalyst, to bring that bridge like what you're doing. And I hope for the last step is for UAE to find one company that they can push, like a Sony in Japan, like a Samsung in Korea, like a Huawei in China. What company can drive that ecosystem here? That is what I'm looking for. And when all those pieces together, because Dubai, UAE has all the pieces, maybe that one missing catalyst, and I think semiconductors in UAE is going to be a reality in a decade. I truly believe that.
And a lot of industrials are built on the availability and accessibility to semiconductors. So what you're saying is this sector can happen here unnaturally by certain policy drives and focus on a critical ecosystem leaders, and everything else grow around it.
Any development of semiconductors is unnatural. There's no such thing as a natural progression. It has to be done by force of will and leadership. So when people talk about Silicon Valley, they always think, oh, Silicon Valley was started by HP and Steve Jobs. That's the wrong history. The real history in the 1950s and 1970s was military-driven. We only know Silicon Valley in the 1970s when Steve Jobs and Apple started moving from a military-driven semiconductor industry to a consumer-based product. So none of semiconductors are natural. It has to be done by leadership and vision. And that takes a place like here, UAE, to have that vision drive it forward. That's why I feel confident that UAE has all the elements to make it happen.
Okay, leadership and vision. And I wanted to land the panel with comment from Minya and channel the question back to you. You mentioned very important thing, intellectual capital, which includes hard intellectual capital of technology IPs, but also soft intellectual capitals of talent and leadership. So from your work of incubating new companies, what do you see this region has or needs to do to attract more intellectual capital in order to do all the great things the panelists mentioned?
Thank you. I no longer know the difference between hard and soft skills, and because I think they're all equally important, and hard and soft both. So this region is taking the right steps. It's making a space which is conducive to living conditions, conducive to good living for people who want to dare to innovate and do things. So that's really good. So, so that makes a space for people who want to innovate, who want to take chances. The location is great. They can work in Europe. They can work across Asia. To innovate, you also need to adapt. And increasingly in the world where different parts of the world need different types of solutions, but the challenges are rooted in the same thing. So providing a space which helps people to innovate, to be able to understand different parts of the world and adapt solutions to that is key. And I think this is what UAE is doing very well. I would just like to add to that while innovation, it is providing a space for innovation, but there is also the next step, which is nurturing innovation and making sure that innovative ideas can move ahead. And I think that is the next big step, nurturing that, providing financial capital, intellectual capital, all of that to kind of let these innovative ideas grow. I think that's the next big step that UAE needs to think about.
Build Amazon, not just a tree.
Exactly. Ideas, yes, but then what do you do with those ideas and make them big? That's the ecosystem that they need to start thinking about.
Thank you. To end the panel, we hear one word, connectivity. Connectivity across regions in real life actually is growing much stronger, deeper, and more woven together than ever than the headlines that we hear. So please reach out to these panelists offline to network with their respective expertise areas and consult them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.